Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bop Boundaries, where we explore what it means to be human in the age of AI. In this episode, we're exploring a topic that's front and center for many people today. What does the job search and career development actually look like in the age of AI? From AI generated resumes to algorithmic hiring to LinkedIn's own AI tools, the landscape is shifting fast. I'm excited to welcome my co host Jackie, as well as a very special guest, Ginny Walker, who's a senior leader at LinkedIn Sales Solution and a former decade long Googler.
So glad to be here. This is such a relevant topic. I feel like everyone I know is either job searching right now or worried about what AI means for their career, especially in this age of tech layoffs. Can't wait to hear Ginny's perspective, and just really from an insider is going to be really valuable for all of us. So thanks for being here.
And a little bit more about Ginny before we bring her on. Ginny Walker is a seasoned sales leader, executive coach, and mom of 5. She currently leads the West Coast Sales Solutions team at LinkedIn, coaches with Kadima Careers, and is the founder of Empower Path Coaching. With over 30 years of leadership experience, including pivotal roles at LinkedIn and Google, where she carried $500 million annual quota and led development for 800 plus global managers. She's also an early adopter of generative AI, and Ginny began training and sales teams on prompt engineering and real-world applications of AI in early 2023. She co-led LinkedIn's first external client training on AI and partnered with legal to define the company's inaugural employee guardrails for responsibility and AI use. And this is a fun fact. According to GPT's own data, Ginny ranks in the top 1% of US users for sales effectiveness and in the top 5% globally. So beyond LinkedIn, she coaches job seekers across industries, helping them harness generative AI to accelerate their job search, telling compelling stories, and land roles with confidence. Ginny brings practical insight and future forward thinking to every conversation, especially around this evolving role of AI in sales, leadership, and the world of work. And as a side note, I've known Ginny for over 13 years. We started together managing a new sales org at Google many years ago up in Mountain View and have been friends ever since. And I've loved following her career journey. So I'm very, very excited to have Ginny Walker on Bot Boundaries today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was very sweet. Welcome. And so excited to be here. I love talking about this. I love talking about AI. I love talking about job search and helping people. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and this is a topic we haven't got into detail with, so I'm really excited to have Ginny here. I think there's a lot we can dive into in terms of the different aspects of job search and career development and what's changing. So, Ginny, you sit inside LinkedIn Sales Solutions, and you've coached hundreds of job seekers in the past several years, which makes you to have like a very unique view on what's happening on both sides as a hiring manager and as coaching people who are job searching. So before we get into the AI angle, I think it would be really great to you have a really interesting career journey that I know about, but I wish more people would know about. So I'd love to hear more about your background and your current role at LinkedIn.
Yeah, for sure. So way back in my baby days, I started in traditional media, in TV and newspaper for 17 years. Leading sales teams there, and ultimately was the director of sales when I exited the newspaper industry. Then spent 10 years at Google leading mid-market sales teams, which a key to that journey, or actually 2 keys to that journey, was number 1, I led hiring for our org, for the org that Katie and I were in, for about 2 years, during which time I revamped the entire hiring process, and we hired about 200 people during that time. Katie, when we first started, there were only like 25 people in the entire
org. It's crazy.
We grew exponentially. And I also brought Sales Navigator Corporate to our org during that time. And that was instrumental in me wanting to eventually leave and go to LinkedIn, actually. But having that hiring experience is super important to what I do now with my coaching, but then also Sales Navigator brought me to LinkedIn. Where I started in talent solutions for the first couple of years and worked with a lot of talent orgs. I was actually laid off from LinkedIn in May of 2023, but they rehired me before my termination date into the role that I'm in now. So I never was not a LinkedIn employee, but there was a 6-week time period where I launched into full-time searching for a job. And that is ultimately what led me to wanting to help other people and in their own job search and sharing what I discovered during that time. So it led to this, and I do all the career coaching on the side. And AI, I know this wasn't about AI. We can talk about that after, but kind of AI was developing during that time, and I got really interested in it early on.
Yeah, I think that's such an important POV and journey to have, because especially anyone who's in tech for like a while, like both of us, Ginny, like we've been through several reorgs, layoffs, and you know, to the outside world, it can just look like, oh, you were at Google for this many years, you're at LinkedIn for this many years, but there's usually lots of ebb and flow to that. That's not always your choice. And there's times, like you said, where you really want to like re-up your skills and look to see what's out there.
Constantly.
Yeah.
You're constantly having to do that. And especially in this climate of AI growth, you have to be doing it or it's really irresponsible.
Yeah, and we'll definitely, that brings us to this next question nicely. But right now, you know, it feels like it's always the fact in tech that there's a lot of turnover and things are always you know, a little not stable. But in this current economic climate, right, we're seeing a lot more variability in tech roles specifically. Some of that may be due to AI and cutting down on roles. But what does the job market actually look like right now for someone like you who's a hiring manager, but also coaching people who are looking for work? And how has AI really changed that dynamic?
Well, so what the data tells us, first of all, let's start there. The current job market trends for 2025 and into 2026 is there's more people searching. We all know this. We feel it. The sources out there are saying that it's about a 10-year high. That's coming from Gallup is saying that from their research. The people who have jobs are doing what they call job hugging. They're not wanting to leave because there's this uncertainty in the market, whereas normally maybe they would leave if they wanted to take a chance and pivot and go into something else, but you're seeing fewer people do that. So there's this high competition for roles. You're seeing layoffs across, especially tech is being hard hit. With some of the AI development going on that is taking some of the roles. And we'll talk more about that, but there's high competition for those roles. So there's low hire, low fire, or low leaving market. And what that is leading to is that it's some sources are saying about 10 weeks on average of unemployment, and that's coming from a CNBC article. What I'm seeing from my own coaching practice is that it is usually about 3 to 6 months on average for someone to find a new role. And that's after they start this very specific strategy of job hunt. And that can be made a lot lengthier for a few reasons. So if you're very senior, like if you're a C-level, it's probably going to take longer than 3 to 6 months to find a role. If you have a very unique background or you're in a very unique role, that can maybe take you longer. And then if there's any ambiguity at all in your mind about what you want to do next, it's going to lengthen the job search significantly. You have to be crystal clear and really focusing all your energy on one role specifically. I know some people in the past have said like, well, I've done these 2 things and maybe I could have a resume for each and just see how it goes. I have not seen that be successful very often in this job market.
Wow.
So that's just how the job market is looking right now. It can feel overwhelming, but what I tell the people that I'm coaching is that there's so much that you can control, and that's what we want to focus on. There is, on the hiring manager side, there's a huge volume of resumes coming in, and so we want to see how you can stand out in that. You had asked about like what role AI is playing in those. So I do see a lot of AI generated resumes that come through, not only on the hiring manager side, but in my coaching business too. People will bring their resume to me and I can tell if it is AI generated. it is overwhelming as a hiring manager that when you open up a role that you get hundreds or thousands of resumes
Wow.
within the first 48 hours. And that is what the hiring managers and recruiters are facing. We're trying to sort through hundreds and thousands of people. A lot of them look and feel the same. So you're trying to figure out, well, obviously I can't interview that many people. I can interview maybe 10, or maybe the recruiter might be able to screen about 20 and then send 10 to the hiring manager, and then they get, passed to the next level of the interviews. But in order to get to that, there's a lot that has to be done. And so it can be overwhelming to see that amount of AI generated resumes. We really want to see the real person underneath those resumes.
Yeah, wow. Super insightful already. Amazing to hear your perspective. And so on that same thread, so many job seekers are using AI, right, to write their resumes and cover letters now. So as someone who is seeing that output day in and day out on the hiring manager side, can you actually tell? Sounds like you can tell. And does it matter? And if it does matter, like how can people actually stand out when they're using AI? So now that you're receiving all of those, like you're telling us, what can we do to leverage AI in a way that's going to benefit us and make your job easier too?
Yeah, I would say that well, first of all, if there are any M dashes in your resume anywhere, get rid of them. Even if you put them there, it still is going to look like it's AI if you have an
So
M
it's like a
dash.
psychological thing, the M dash now.
I like the M dash, but it is.
I used to use it.
You can
but
tell when it's overused. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And then outside of that, like dead giveaway, just having no personality to the resume, having the same look and structure, using tons of just commercial or corporate jargon. It feels like AI, if you don't lead it effectively, because really, and we'll talk about this too, the AI is your thought partner. You have to tell it what you want. You have to still be the human touch on it. So if you're not leading it effectively and you're just letting it do what it wants to do, it's going to put a ton of corporate jargon in there. It'll just take maybe what you've seen on, or what it's seen on job descriptions, and kind of like string words together. And it just becomes gobbledygook. It's nothing.
Generic.
It means nothing.
Yeah.
So what I want to see is, are you using AI to help you, but you're still infusing yourself into that resume? And so like where you can use AI, for instance, is you might run a prompt asking it to look at, this is what I do with my coaching clients. If they're looking at a certain job, I'll have them go pull, like, let's say 3 to 5 job descriptions of that role, run all of those into AI against their resume, and say, look at these 3 to 5 job descriptions, pull out some of the most commonly used phrases or verbs. What are the skills that are similar across all? And let's find a very polished way to insert those into the resume, but still using my personality, my voice, my delivery. That's super important. So you're going to pull some of those important things into it so that you're making sure that you're aligned with the job description, but it's still going to sound like you. And you're still going to be featuring your quantifiable impacts within the resume, because that's when I scan a resume, which actually I don't even look at resumes much, guys. We can talk about that too. I look at LinkedIn profiles, because LinkedIn profiles are templates that, as hiring managers, we know where everything is that we can find easily and quickly. And so I scan a profile looking for numbers. That's my first pass. And everywhere there's a number, I will stop and read it. If I were scanning a resume, I would do the same thing. So putting in your quantifiable impact is going to be really important, and that gives it your personality into it as well.
It's awesome. Yeah, really good tips there. And, I think a lot of people
good.
spend a lot of time using AI to optimize resumes where, again, it looks all the same. Like, that's not what we want. And even LinkedIn, like, you can have a personality on LinkedIn, you can have posts, you can have data, you can have case studies. There's a lot of opportunity there to, everyone's probably now going to go look at their LinkedIn profile and brush it up.
You should. It's
Yeah.
important. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of companies, LinkedIn, Google, other small startups now have rolled out a lot of AI powered features for job seekers. So that could be AI assisted job applications. Now on LinkedIn, you can just do one click apply. They give you profile optimization suggestions. They're really good. I've used them myself. And there's a lot of really cool interview prep tools. I know Google has Google Warm Up. I think LinkedIn might have something similar where you can like practice questions, or for technical roles where there's coding questions, you can practice that as well. So from your point of view, since you have a lot of experience across like multiple tech companies and as a coach, what is like really moving the needle for candidates using these tools or companies seeking talent? Like, what do you think the best tools out there are that maybe people aren't aware of or they should start using?
Well, I think that LinkedIn and some of the other job seeking sites help to highlight roles to you that you may not have been aware of, and that is helpful. You're still going to have to find a warm path into those because referrals still are the best way to get in. And you're going to want that employee referral to happen within the first 48 hours. And that goes back to what I was saying just before, which is as hiring managers and recruiters, we are inundated with cold applications, cold applies within the first 48 hours. And it's really hard to comb through those. So we're relying a lot across the industry. This is not just me as a hiring manager, but I've spoken to a lot of others as well that are relying a lot on employee referrals, friend referrals. So if Katie reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, I saw you're hiring for this role and my friend Jackie is interested, could you meet with her? I would definitely meet with her. So that is, those are how people are getting shortlisted into the interview process. Or of course, like if you're an employee already at the company and you're internally applying, those are typically the ones that are getting the most interviews. It's not impossible to get an interview from cold apply, but it's very unlikely that that shouldn't be your primary strategy for job search right now, is just cold applying and hoping that you're going to get a call. So if you are looking at LinkedIn and you see that it highlights a job for you, which is super helpful, still go on and into LinkedIn, see, do you have any common connections that can refer you there, or is there any kind of personal connection you have to somebody working at that company, like maybe you both went to the same alma mater, that you could reach out and ask them if they'd be willing to do an employee referral. So yes, that one is helpful, but it also still requires the human element. And then also LinkedIn Premium, if you have LinkedIn Premium, has LinkedIn Learning as part of it. There's a ton of incredible content on LinkedIn Learning. I talk about LinkedIn Learning because I work at LinkedIn. Obviously, this is what I'm most familiar with, but there are other sites out there that of course have content to consume. I would just make sure that it's being led by experts in their fields, so that you're getting the best, most accurate information on whatever it is that you're consuming. But that can help you to brush up on your old skills, create new skills. It can even help you just within interviewing itself. There's a bunch of learning content on how to, have better, stronger presence, how to approach interviews, how to just come across as more knowledgeable, or to make an impression during your interview. So there's a lot of content there that is really helpful. And then I'd say one of the really critical AI tools out there, and you can get this from LinkedIn. Katie, you mentioned the Google Warm Up tool as well. There's a bunch of startups too that are doing similar AI role plays. Is that AI role play function super important? When you're in the interview process, you should be practicing all the time. You should practice as much as you can with AI. You should practice with your friends, with your family. You can record yourself and just watch it back. You should be practicing with a career coach, because if you're not practicing, then you're practicing in your interviews. And that's not where you want to be practicing. That's where you should be showcasing your incredibleness and not practicing your answers on them.
That's so
Yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I think the practice thing is something people forget or they're uncomfortable with. So, like, yeah, do it with an AI tool where you can record yourself on like a Google Meet or a Zoom. Use the AI tools that are there to give you feedback, and it doesn't feel as high pressure as maybe talking to a real person. But I will say, like, great career coaches like Ginny and folks that do this for a living, like, it is great to get that real person feedback too, to take it up to the next level. And we always used to say, Jenny, when we were training folks too, like, really get your elevator pitch down. That's something you can practice with friends and family of like, who are you and what do you do? What have you done in the past? What's been your career journey? Or why do you want this role? What roles are you looking for, to tell friends and family to think of you? But getting that down to pithy, short, 30-second, 1 minute under. I can't count the number of times I've interviewed people, and that has taken up 15 minutes. And I'm like, whoa, don't have an interview left.
Yeah, great points. My gosh. Positioning is everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool. So let's talk about the algorithmic side. Often companies rely on ATS systems for job matching, recruiter search, etc., and are all powered by AI. How should job seekers be thinking about optimizing for the algorithm? And is there a tension between writing for the algorithm and writing for a human, which we've touched on? But yeah, I'd love to hear more of your perspective on that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't want anyone relying on their resume as the sole thing that is going to get them an interview. You should be relying on network to introduce you and to surface you as an employee referral. That's number one. However, you still need a resume, and your resume is really your ticket for admission to the process, essentially. And if you do happen to do any cold applications because you haven't yet created a network somewhere that you see a job come up at, then yes, keywords within that resume are still going to matter, because if an ATS system is doing a scrub of all resumes received, it's going to be looking for the keywords that are used within the job descriptions. That's what it's doing. It's just keyword matching, essentially, to make sure that you meet the minimum requirements, and then it will surface you to the recruiter as a first stop. Now, here's where ATS systems break down, and where, just as a warning to anyone who is thinking about this and how they're structuring their resume. I had in a recent interview process that I was hiring for, I had someone who was making a career pivot, but it was a very similar pivot. So, such as going from customer success into sales. They're connected. Yeah. They're a little bit different, but they're still connected, and so super similar. This person was making a similar pivot to that, and the ATS system, because they cold applied for my role, the ATS system completely ignored them, because it wasn't picking up on the same words that were used within the job description. However, the skills that they used within the role were the exact same. And they had been super successful in their role. And it took someone in my network reaching out and saying, I have a friend who applied for your role. Maybe you should talk to them. And then I went in and had the recruiter pull the resume, and we realized that this was a very strong candidate coming from another huge tech company where they were very successful, brought them in for an interview, and ultimately hired them. Wow. I would have never seen it, though, because the ATS system didn't pull it. So that's just a kind of a cautionary tale of what I explained earlier about pulling some job descriptions and making sure that you're using a lot of the same keywords and action verbs in it is going to be very very important. Now, of course, never lie. I'm not asking anyone to make something up, but a lot of the keywords are the same, and just usually the way you describe them might be different words for different roles. So just making sure that those are matching up.
That's great. Excellent, excellent example there. So zooming out a little bit, beyond like the tactical aspect of the job search, there's been a lot of talk in the press and in tech that AI is going to changing entire careers and industries, right? You've worked in tech as well as traditional media, which has undergone a huge transformation. But I'd love to hear what roles or skills you think are genuinely at risk from AI, and what skills you think are becoming more valuable in the age of AI.
Yeah. So when I first started really diving into AI and reading up on it all the time, well, I've always had an affinity for it. I think, Katie, with our background at Google, it's just something we continue to monitor any developments in like search and tech and things like that. It's just built into us. So when ChatGPT first launched in 22, and I started reading a lot of the articles coming out in around January 2023 is when you started really seeing a lot more in mainstream media about it. One of the things that stood out to me at that time was somebody said, it's not going to be AI that takes your job, but someone who knows how to use AI effectively may take your job. And that stuck with me. And so really wanting to use AI as a thought partner to get better in your role and see how can you be more effective, more efficient. My goal when I first started experimenting with it was I just want to shave off an hour a day in my work. Not even talking about personal life, but just like in my work life, if I can save an hour a day, what can I do to reinvest that? So AI won't, there are definitely roles that are more at risk, but I would say get more comfortable with AI, and that will help you to have a better chance at still having some kind of role within your company. If you're seen as one of the people who is a thought leader on AI, as opposed to someone who maybe is not embracing it and moving forward with it. But ultimately, Katie, to answer your question, so anything that is writing related, data formatting, anything like copywriting is going to be the industries that are more affected by AI. We're also seeing it a lot in customer relations chatbots. They're starting to take over. I know I tried to book a hotel in SF a few weeks ago, and I called because I was having trouble online, and it was very clear to me that it was a good AI chat person, but I could still tell it was AI, and I ultimately ended up booking somewhere else because it was so frustrating. That will get better over time, though. And so that is rapidly improving. Those types of roles are going to start to be impacted more and more. But the skills that are more valuable overall are going to be anything that requires a human element. So anything that requires human judgment, relationship building is huge. Like within sales roles, especially when you get into mid-market enterprise, large enterprise, those types of roles, they will be impacted, but not completely, because there is always going to be an element of needing the relationship building and the human. Anything that takes creative problem solving or emotional intelligence, those are all going to be pretty safe. And so leaning into your uniquely human strengths, what makes you, that is where your power is within the AI revolution. And then I will also say, like, I have a son who's a police officer. I have a son who's a paramedic. Those types of jobs aren't going away. So if you are at a point where you've been in tech and you want to start shifting away, I would look at jobs like that really need the human element, that are never going to go away.
Yeah, great advice. Yeah, I think that's really crucial, especially for sales, which is me and Ginny's background. Some of that research, appointment booking, kind of junior sales stuff it might be automated, and some of it already is getting automated very quickly and very well. But like you need a human closer, right? Like no one's gonna AI is not closing a multi-million-dollar sale. It's just not. Yeah. Awesome. And you spoke a little bit earlier about some of the workshops you've run. So I had the pleasure to see like a mini workshop Ginny did on AI and job search at the Wonder Woman Tech Future Forward event in SF. But I know you've done these internally at LinkedIn as well as externally for folks. So I'd love to hear a little bit about like what you generally do workshops on. What does like you've already talked a little bit about what AI literacy looks like, but why it's important to keep up to date with AI and how sometimes just taking a little bit of time can actually go a long way.
Yeah. So if you rewind back to the January 2023 when a lot of these articles first started coming out, and when I started seeing some of the quotes that really stuck with me and kind of drove my behavior with AI, one of the data points that I still think about and can rattle off is in one article, a Microsoft executive was quoted as saying 66% of a salesperson's daily activities can be automated by AI. And I remember at that time when AI was still in its infancy, well, I mean, AI has been around for a really long time, but LLMs were still in their infancy. That was something that really gave me pause. And in the moment, I thought, okay, I'm going to look at that stat though as not scary, but rather empowering, that if I can figure out how to unlock 66% of my time and of my team's time, we can then put that time into more customer facing time, more problem solving time, more creative thinking about our future strategies time. And it became something that really encouraged me and inspired me. And I started experimenting with AI. And I figured that at that point, it wasn't just about what can I do on my professional side that would help me to be more effective, but also if I could lighten the load on, I have 5 kids, y'all. Like I have a big load. If I can lighten the load in my personal life as well, that brings me just so much more emotional and mental capacity to handle anything. So I started to play with it across all aspects of my life. And that's the first thing I recommend is just jump in. And even if it's something like helping yourself come up with a bedtime story for your toddler and you're feeding a prompt into it about, all the things your toddler likes and what their name is and what their favorite color and food, and you tell it everything and have it come up with a story, or plan a trip with it.
Yes.
Just start with some easy things that are meaningful to you, and then go further and further. The thing with AI, and if you are new to AI, which I imagine most people are pretty familiar at this point, but don't use it the way that we used to use Google search or Bing search or any kind of search. The more complex you are with your prompting, the more that you're going to get out of it. So what I recommend is I actually turn on the audio function. I don't just type in my prompts, and I do a free flow stream of consciousness to GPT or Claude or whoever I'm working with that day, and tell it everything that I want to see out of whatever I'm prompting it about. I tell it how to act. I want you to act as a business executive or, a veteran sales person. You always tell it how you want it to act so that it knows what hat to put on. I tell it what tone, if I'm having something written, what tone do I want it in? How do I want it to be received by the person? I tell it what things to research. So where to grab the research, what do I want to see in its results. So think about everything and just throw it all in there. Again, this is about it being your thought partner, or think of it as your personal assistant.
For
And
sure. Yeah.
so that is one thing. Also, once you play with it a little bit more, start building some agents. It's so simple to build an agent. it's basically just built how you build a prompt, but you're telling it instead, make this into an agent. And then talk about that publicly. Post about it on LinkedIn that you created this agent. That will start building you up as someone who is fluent in LLMs and AI. Do other things like attend workshops or conferences and then share about it. Host, after you go to a few of these, like host a free session where you invite people on LinkedIn to join you and to just talk about it. The more that you talk about it and are seen talking about it publicly, then the more you become a thought leader in that space.
Great.
That's really good advice. Love that. Really positioning yourself with those tips will really be helpful in anyone's career. And I love how you mentioned the human side of it all. So I have a software company that leverages AI also. And we always talk about how we're allowing humans to do what humans do best. So I'm right there with you, right? That's what I think is the benefit. While there are some cons around it, that's the biggest benefit, that it's allowing us to really focus on the stuff that we don't typically have time for pre-LLM. So that's really cool. So to shift a little bit, for someone going through a career pivot or exploring a new industry, how can you give advice around how they can use AI and LinkedIn together to do smarter search, build the right network, and position themselves even without a direct background in a new field? I loved how you touched on positioning yourself as an authority who understands AI, uses LLMs, but kind of a little bit more general. How can they leverage AI to position themselves in any way?
Yeah. So the job search really has shifted. And I think we used to be more consumers of content, meaning when you were ready to look for a job, you waited for somebody to post a job that seemed to apply to you, and then you would cold apply to it. And you'd do that across multitudes of jobs, and ultimately you'd get called back for some interviews and you'd get a job that way. It's not working that way anymore. So we have to turn the job search on its head. And instead of starting that way, start with making a target list of companies that you're interested in. And so first sit down and just make a list yourself of whatever you can think of off the top of your head. And then use LLMs to help you augment that and to build it out. Tell them exactly what you're looking for. Like, I'm going to give you a list of potential companies that I'm looking at, but I want you to also help me think of like what are similar companies that maybe aren't as well known, or maybe startups that are just come into being over the last couple of years that I'm not aware of. And also look at my background. I'm going to paste in my experience from my resume or my LinkedIn profile and use that to compare to the list of companies that I have and make suggestions about companies that can be kind of at the intersection of both what I'm looking for. And then tell it things like, and I want to be a remote employee like me. Or I want to be in this metro area and I would prefer hybrid work, and I want a company that's known for mission-driven culture. Whatever it is, throw it in there. Have them help you, have the LLM help you to build that out to at least 40, but more likely 100 companies. And that's where you're going to start. Throw that on Excel spreadsheet and start mapping, where do you have a champion identified? I would like to see the people that I'm coaching have at least 2 to 3 champions at each of those companies, because you're going to need those people that as soon as a role comes up, that you're going to ask them to refer you within the first 24 to 48 hours. And so the reason you need 2 or 3 is like, I might be in Hawaii. Katie might be sick. You have to find the next person then to refer you. And wherever there are gaps on that spreadsheet, that's where your work begins. And that's where you can start using LinkedIn and other tools online to map your target companies and figure out where do you have warm paths into those, either through second degree connections or commonalities in your background, like college or maybe past companies you worked for, past industries, towns that you've lived in, anything like that that can be some kind of common ground. you'll use that then to ask for coffee chats, and you're going to build your networks and your champions through these coffee chats. And then when I do set up coffee chats, I'm using the LLMs to help me research and prepare to meet with them. I want to, I built an agent for this, and anyone can build an agent for this. I want to prepare for those info chats in like, what ways can I connect with them personally? You know, are there kids in soccer or baseball like mine? Is that something that we can find publicly? Have they worked in industries that I've worked in the past? Have they worked at companies that were similar to ones that I worked with? Have they posted anything recently that I might remark about? Are there any recent news articles or financial results of the company that they're at? Or have they been on a podcast recently or quoted in any articles that I can talk about? So I use an LLM to help me surface all of those. I can prep for a coffee chat in 5 minutes.
Awesome.
I have it, give me not only like opening talking points, but like what are some questions that I can ask them. And in those coffee chats, I just stay very curious. Just ask them a ton of questions about themselves. They will ask you about you too. And that's when you can say, I would love to stay in touch. And if anything ever came open at whatever company it is, would you be open to referring me? So that's where you start your job search now. And then in tandem with that, you're beefing up your resume and your LinkedIn profile using some of the strategies we talked about earlier, and using AI to help you really translate those transferable skills into the language in your bullet points that will speak to the hiring manager. And just as a reminder, like using the strong verbs from the job descriptions and including quantified results. That's a little portion of how you use it.
Yeah, I love that that's so tactical, and I don't think it's what most people think of when they think of job search. They're like, I'm just going to go on LinkedIn and look for roles. But I love the idea of like having the target company list. So important, and champions. Like that's, and people can start doing that when they're not looking too. Just to know who their champions are.
Yeah.
Really important. Yeah, that's great advice. So we talked about it earlier, but like a central theme of our podcast is really what it means to be human in the age of AI. And we've talked a lot about that today already. But I'd love to hear your point of view, especially when it comes to job search and career development. What are some like ways you think, boundaries you set on AI, or things you think AI should never take full control of? Like, where do you say like, no, this is actually better served by a human?
The relationship building aspect throughout the entire process is just so incredibly important to the interview process. That cannot be replaced with AI. You have to put your genuine self out there and meet with people, have chats with them, and build cheerleaders at these companies for you. So that takes a lot of authenticity and vulnerability, and you have to put yourself out there constantly. Your personal brand story, Katie, you mentioned this earlier, that kind of elevator pitch or the tell me about yourself that you'll get asked in interviews. You have to craft that. AI and LLMs can help you to brainstorm, some of it, but that's where the real you has to really shine. That's the most asked interview question you will ever have in your life. So you have to have this down, and you have to come across as a real person in that moment, and you have to make an impression in seconds. Like, you really only have about 2 minutes of that, telling your elevator pitch or your tell me about yourself. So that has to really shine and be you. And also just the interview questions and coming across in your answers. I will give you an example of, again, me as a hiring manager. I've had someone within the last year who it was very obvious to me was using a recorder, probably had GPT or something similar up on their screen, and was recording the interview and having GPT or whatever it was prompt this person with the answers.
Wow.
So because every single question that I asked, they would pause and go, yeah, that's a really good question.
And they'd look over their
And
screen.
then they look over and then just have this like perfectly designed answer that didn't have the intonations of regular conversation. By the way, you have to just be a person and have a conversation and not sound like a robot or sound like you're reading a script. And so, yes, it's a great, amazing tool and it can help you to prepare for these moments. But when you're in these interviews, or when you're in these coffee chats, it's all about the interaction, the conversation, and connecting with the people. And so don't absolutely never rely on it in those moments to like read a script from it. That's never going to help you.
Yeah, that's great.
Good advice there for sure. Especially in leadership. I mean, I can't imagine someone going for a leadership role doing that. But so last question before we segue into our fun segment. If you had one piece of advice for someone who is job searching or thinking about their next career move right now in this specific AI moment and economic climate that we're in, what would it be?
Ooh. In one piece. Well, I reflect back on the article that I read at that one point that said AI is not going to take your job. It's going to be someone who knows AI well that would take your job. So showing up in interviews now, being ready to talk about AI. By the way, it's showing up in interview questions where people are actually asking, how do you incorporate AI into your daily work to make yourself more effective, for instance? So being ready to field questions like that, but even if it's not asked, being ready to weave it into your answers to show them that you're already, AI fluent and using it in thoughtful ways to help augment you is going to be important. So use it as your thought partner. I know I said this before, use it as your thought partner, as your personal assistant. Get in the arena, just start playing with it if you haven't yet, and stay curious. Like you have to just stay in this like constant learning, especially now with the speed that AI is developing. Like one of the things that I am continually doing is going on every couple weeks and asking one of the LLMs, what are the new developments within the space of, SaaS B2B sales in AI that I should know about? Because everything's happening so quickly that there could be something that I miss if I'm not constantly proactively searching for it. So AI can really help you find the doors out there. But just remember, you still have to be a human. You still have to make sure you're showing up authentically.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Ginny. This has been such a really grounding and useful conversation with a lot of specifics you got into for folks that I think people are going to take away a lot of nuggets from this that they can use right away. So in a world where AI is writing resumes, screening candidates, and optimizing profiles, I think it's clear from this conversation that the thing it still can't be automated is you, your story, your judgment, your presence, and really importantly, your relationships. AI can sharpen your tools, but it can't replace your voice. And it's leaders like Ginny who remind us that the future of work is going to be still deeply human. And the best thing we can do is show up, stay curious, like she just mentioned, and keep learning both about AI and just, honing our skills in general.
Yeah, spot on. So great conversation, Ginny, and like full of valuable insights that we can all put to use immediately. So I love that. Now it's time for our fun segment. We call it Love It or Leave It. This time we're looking at AI tools and trends in the job search world. So first up, we have AI resume writers and one-click apply tool platforms like Teal, Kick Resume, and even LinkedIn's own AI suggestions that help job seekers auto-generate and tailor resumes for each role in minutes. Is this a huge time saver or a race to the bottom where every resume looks the same? Love it or leave it. Ginny, you're first.
Oh, I'm first. Okay. I love it as a tool in moderation. Does that count?
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier the resume really isn't the most important part of the job process. It shouldn't be. It's your ticket for admission, but also at the same time, you don't want it to look like every other single resume out there. So use it sparingly.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too, Jenny. Like I love it for the ease of use, and to your point, like those 24 to 48 hours are so important and critical. If it could help you apply faster, great. But I think to your point, like writing a really impactful cover letter, using your network, and reaching out to the people that can actually refer you to this job is probably more important. And so I wouldn't overuse it either and apply to like a ton of stuff that's not a match for you. So I think it can be really easily like abused.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I'm a love it-ish, but I think that they're really good for people who struggle with writing. And
Yeah.
so it can be really helpful for them, which is great. And just the time-saving benefits that these tools can provide by generating or refining a resume in minutes really helps too. But, because it's a full-time job looking for work
yeah.
and just looking for work that you might actually enjoy. So it's definitely a worthwhile need that these platforms are solving for. And I'm a fan of niche platforms that are probably doing the job better than the giant LLMs. So yeah, love it-ish.
All right, I'll do the next one. Okay, we talked about this a little bit already, but AI interview coaches. So it could be LinkedIn's interview prep AI, Google's interview warm up, tools like Final Round AI. They simulate a job interview for you, giving you real time feedback on your answers, pace, filler words, and it can help you rehearse. Do we believe this is a game changer for potentially for nervous candidates or folks that need that practice? Or is it a crutch, like your example earlier, Ginny, where people are getting over rehearsed or over scripted, more robotic? Love it or leave it.
Am I first again?
Yeah, you could be first again.
Oh, okay. I love these. I think that they are fantastic at helping you just practice it without feeling self-conscious or feeling like somebody's going to judge you. And it also can give you great feedback. Somebody that I was coaching recently told me that after one of their interview processes that they were in, they took the transcripts. This a little bit of a difference, but kind of related. They took the transcripts from the interviews and they fed it into an LLM along with the job description and then along with the feedback that they received from the recruiter at the end, and asked it like, what insights should I take from this? And it spit out a bunch of insights for them on like what they did well, what they should have done better. And that is exactly what an interview coach can do for you, but before the interviews ever take place. So I think use it to really be strategic in preparing. Feed it the job description, feed it the profiles of the people that you're going to be meeting with, and ask it, what types of questions are these specific people going to want to ask, and what is important to them given their role at the company and also their background. Are they super analytical? Or are they going to want me to speak with a lot of data? So that's what I think is so great about AI role plays. Definitely recommend them.
For sure. Yeah, I'm a love it also. They give people a real low pressure way to practice and just get comfortable and build confidence, like you've mentioned, Ginny, and all of your recommendations really. So yeah, love it.
Yeah, I'm a love it too. I think it's a great rehearsal. I come from like a theater background, so it's a great rehearsal tool, right? Like you have to rehearse with someone or something to feel really confident the day of. But I would say like, treating it as that rehearsal and training wheels, but knowing that you eventually are going to have to do it in person and add your personality and make sure that it's not too robotic. I think that's the downfall of it, but I think it's a great tool for everyone to use.
Okay, last one. So you can have several rounds of interviews, and companies are now using AI to interview candidates because there's several rounds, right? And now with virtual interviewers, there's no one there. And just there's a video conference recording and some pre-screened questions. Are we missing out on not having humans do the early stage interviews? And what do employers gain in terms of efficiencies? And are those efficiencies really worth it? Are we a love it or leave it on this? Ginny, you're first again.
In my opinion, leave it. The personal connection is so important to me, and being able to, when you're having a live conversation, you can feel the energy. Jackie, if you came to an interview with me, your energy would play off of mine and back and forth. But if you're trying to have a conversation with a chat bot, you're not going to be able to really show the real you, because it's awkward. It's not normal to have those conversations. So for me personally, I don't feel like I would get the real person from that interview. I would want to meet with all of them myself. So I understand that companies are trying to figure out more efficient ways to get through the hiring process, but this is not one of them, and for me.
I agree. I think, Ginny, when we were at Google, we were always in the top percent of managers who did a number of interviews. And I think that's your job as a manager, right? Like, it's my job to take the time to work with my recruiters to screen, and some of the screening might be done automated, right? But I need to actually get and do those 10 interviews, those 6 interviews of the top candidates. I would have a pretty bad taste in my mouth if I got screened and moved forward, and my first interview was with a bot and not a real person, because the candidates are interviewing you too, and they want to know if they want you as their manager, if they like the culture, if they like the tone and the work, and how you're describing it. So you get so much out of those interviews as both a hiring manager and an interviewee that I don't think it can be automated. And in fact, I think it looks bad on the company, depending on what level in the process you're at, to have that be done automatically.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you guys. So total leave it. You just use the nuance and the human read you only get in a real conversation. The person who's applying, they're just not going to feel any vibe and may not really show who they truly are, like you said, Ginny. It might be efficient, but it really flattens out the process, and you might get more rehearsed answers too. So
Yeah, totally.
authenticity might really lack. So that wraps it up. I mean, I know Katie and I really enjoyed chatting with you today,
Yes,
Ginny,
thank you.
about all things AI and job search and careers. So thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for inviting me. Love this.
Yeah.
It's a really fun talk.
You did great. Yeah, so many good nuggets in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so good seeing you today, Katie, too, as always. And just a reminder, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn under Katie Wilson, or my company, Serious Moonlight Consulting. Also on Instagram at Serious Moonlight Consulting.
Great. And Ginny, where can folks find you online?
Look for me on LinkedIn, Ginny Walker. It's Ginny. And I'm working on a couple of things that will be coming up, some job search sessions that will be coming up. I'll announce those on LinkedIn. So if you follow me there, you'll see it.
Awesome.
And also working on a website. So that would also be announced on LinkedIn. So for now, find me on LinkedIn. Follow me there.
She's a great
I can't
follow.
wait for those announcements. Everyone, find me on LinkedIn at Jackie Gutierrez, and on Instagram and TikTok at Business Growth Gal. And please follow Bot Boundaries at Bot Boundaries on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Thanks everyone for listening. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're available on all platforms and also YouTube. Bye, ladies.
Bye.